In this video, you're going to learn why I had the same experience when I first saw Black Widow. And what does Black Widow got to do with this review? Venom, Let There Be Carnage is a new film in the Sony universe, a sequel to the first Venom that came out in 2017. So Eddie Brock as Venom. It also stars Michelle Williams, who's returned as Anne, and also Tom Hardy is also the voice of Venom, and pretty much this film is directed by Andy Serkis, a brand new director. In Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Eddie Brock struggles to adjust to his new life as a host of the alien symbiote Venom, which grants him superhuman abilities in order to be a lethal vigilante. Brock attempts to reignite his career by interviewing serial killer Cletus Kasady, who becomes the host of the symbiote Carnage. And we have a movie, Let There Be Carnage. In this movie, we focus on our character Eddie Brock, and pretty much we have bickering amongst Venom and Eddie Brock, trying to figure out who's going to host who. I mean, we pretty much have this throughout like the first two acts. I will have to say the positives in this movie was the performances was great. I thought that Woody Harrelson played Carnage absolutely did a fantastic job of bringing the menacing factor to the character. I really thought that Woody Harrelson really pulled that off. Pretty much the main performance in this whole entire movie, you're going to get like a standout performance from Eddie Brock. I mean, the character was interesting, it's really cool. I really liked him arguing. They really show good banter between Eddie Brock and Venom, and Tom Hardy was also the voice of Venom, and he absolutely did a good job. There's some jokes in this movie that sometimes lands well, not as much as the first, and I chuckled a couple of times, but I was heavily critical on the first film due to the scene structure and how the film was set up, that I felt like there were some opportunities they could have used the downtime of setting up and build up to elevating certain characters, which they hardly didn't do, because the chemistry I felt between Anne and Eddie Brock, I felt like there's hardly any chemistry there. And for this movie, it's pretty much the same when it comes to the setup. And as I talk about the cons, yeah, the performances were great. The whole entire film relied heavily on build-up, similar to the first film, where it took away certain opportunities the director could have used to elevate certain characters that didn't get elevated in the first movie. Like Eddie Brock's character arc only a purpose because of Anne. If Anne wasn't in a particular spot, we wouldn't have the first movie. It didn't elevate Eddie Brock. They didn't elevate Carnage's character. The one thing I talked about in the first movie was the villain, the true villain. There wasn't much of a backstory of a villain where we don't really understand the villain's true motive. His characterization was horrid in that first movie that I hardly don't remember the villain in the first movie. I think this guy named Drake or something, Carlton Drake or something, and he had like a symbiote guy. I don't remember the symbiote's name, but I should know these things. I mean, I wish that there was a little bit more characterization on Cletus Kasady. Now, the performance-wise, Woody Harrelson did a good job performing the character, but from a character standpoint, it just wasn't there, because the way that Carnage came to be, he was just there, and there wasn't much characterization around that, so I just couldn't really get into it. Also, there's a romance between Shriek and Kasady and Carnage, but I just wish there was a little bit more characterization or a little bit more development of the romance, so if I can get emotionally behind that. But what the film does, based on the scene structure, the film relied heavily on setup, because we know that Venom and Carnage are going to fight. That's the main thing we're here for. I understand that, but the film wasn't even self-aware that they're going to have a main fight, but the film hardly didn't know where to go during that time of building up to the main fight. And I felt like the director should have used those opportunities of building other characters so that I can get to an emotional level. Now, what they do, we have Eddie Brock and Venom arguing and bickering amongst each other. That is very cool, and I appreciate that. But I just wish there was a little bit more characterization. The jokes was actually almost declined from the first film. I laughed more in the first film than I did in this film. You get some stellar action sequences in this movie. This film is a good action film. And this film does have some really cool elements from Venom. There has some really cool Easter eggs that diehard fans will enjoy themselves. Now, you're not going to get much of substance outside of the action sequences, which I wish the film could have delved into. The end credit scene, the same experience I watched Black Widow, because when I saw Black Widow, I didn't really care for Black Widow after the movie, but that end credit scene definitely got me hyped. And for this movie, I didn't have any expectation, and that's okay, but the film didn't wow me or any kind of way, but that end credit scene got me really hyped and excited for what's to come. Oh man, I really want to talk about it, but whoa, I can't. If you saw that, that's all I gotta say. I don't know. This film just lacks the characterization of new characters, because one of the rules that I mentioned before in my other reviews that I mentioned in MCU films, when you're introducing new characters to the general audience, the main important thing is to have characterization, character development for your characters for the general audience. So me being a comic book lover, I'm going to gravitate towards his character regardless because of my knowledge from the comic books. But for the general audience who don't read the comic books, they're not going to have much clue of who these characters are. So I'm going to have to give Venom, Let There Be Carnage, a foul timber Batman. This is a forgettable movie. If you're a fan of Venom, probably find it a guilty pleasure, but this is not as good as the first movie, unfortunately. But that end credit scene, though, that end credit scene was actually the only reason why I came into the Venom screening. I was hopefully the film could, because I didn't go into this movie with any expectations. I was just hoping the film can at least rise my expectations, but, you know, it didn't do it, so no harm done. This is what I expected. So that's my review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Have you seen Venom, Let There Be Carnage? What are your thoughts? Comment below. Let's talk about it. And I'll see you guys in my next review. I got a couple more reviews coming up. If you like everything you see and you agree, click right here. Join me in the Batman family. I have more Batman-tastic reviews in the way. You have been warned. Till then,